The founder of a Black Lives Matter chapter in St. Paul, Minnesota, revealing why he quit the organization.
Rashad Turner saying he learned the, quote, ugly truth about BLM and that the leadership shows little concern for promoting the welfare of Black lives. And he joins us now. Rashad, thank you so much for being here. Look, I think we can all agree the lives of Black people matter. If you don't agree with that statement, you're a racist. But the organization, BLM, what is the ugly truth that you discovered?
Well, I think you hit it on the head right there, right? When you call for a moratorium on charter schools, that is a direct attack on Black families, on Black children. The question I always ask folks, how can Black lives matter if Black minds don't matter?
So the organization raised $90 million in 2020, and I'm curious where that money is going, and if that money is going to help Black families, to help Black children.
Well, I'll tell you this, we here in Minnesota, we've got worst in nation education gaps. And, you know, based on the data where we have tons of schools where 4 out of 5 kids cannot read, I would say that money's not coming to Minnesota, right? If we had 90 million, heck, children would be up here reading, our schools would be better. But let me add something here. When you think about that 90 million, where it comes from, BLM has been co-opted. They've been co-opted by teachers unions, specifically at the national level, the American Federation of Teachers, and here locally in Minnesota, Education Minnesota. These teachers unions own the Democrats, they own BLM, and teachers unions, in my opinion, they kill our children's hopes and dreams. So if we're thinking about Black children doing what's best for Black families, we have to start with education.
Yeah.
There's not a disparity in this country that doesn't begin with folks not being able to read. So if Black lives really matter, we must start in that classroom.
I mean, that's the crux of this, right? For decades, Blacks have been prevented from getting the same quality education as whites. It's a fact. It's reality. Why does the education system, though, seem to be allowed to suppress Blacks like it does?
Well, it's the teachers unions. I can't say it enough. Here in Minnesota, Education Minnesota is 94% white. Yet they walk around acting like they're so woke that they understand what's best for Black children, right? But they own our education system. They spend about $30 to $50 million a year here in Minnesota to control what our politicians are doing. I don't know if folks have been paying attention to what our, I don't even know what to call him these days, but Governor Tim Walz here in Minnesota hasn't done one thing, and that's because teachers unions control him. We have to start listening to parents. I mean, there's no way on earth after these 2 past school years that folks can think that things like education savings accounts aren't going to be good for families. I'll tell you, there's not one Black family in my neighborhood here in St. Paul that has said, hey, we don't want that money to follow our child. Anyone who's in opposition to school choice, charter schools, you're right. I'd say they're a racist, right? Because we know that charter schools are creating opportunities. We know that that money that is supposed to be educating our children, that's not happening here in Minnesota. We spend the most money, top states in this country on what we spend on education. However, our outcomes don't show that we're spending millions upon millions of dollars to try and educate children.
Rashad Turner, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hate, and to welcome back to the features in Ramadan. Jazakumullah khairan. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, please subscribe, please share, and please hit me up on Patreon. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here, and we are live again. And this topic here, whew. Okay, so basically I kind of stumbled on this topic on my social media, and I thought, that this was such a deep topic that we got to do a live about it. All right. So like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon. Excuse me, and let's get into it. So, family, the nuclear family, in terms of the Black experience, has been under attack for a very long time. And in the Moynihan report in the 60s, Richard Moynihan explicitly mentioned that, during the times of slavery, a Black person being married to a Black man being married to a Black woman was seen somewhat of a joke, because Black men were subject to having their so-called wives, molested by the white slave masters. And since the end of slavery, there has been not only an attack on Black wealth and Black men, but the Black family in general, a direct attack. Okay. The Jim Crow period was essentially an extension of slavery. It was the backlash of white slave owners who had lost their property and tons of wealth. And how did they respond? They responded with incredible violence and brutality. Incredible violence and brutality. Lynching at least one Black person a week, and not just lynching them like a man's. No, this was a family affair. They would bring their children, their little boys and little girls, to participate in the murder of Black men. Y'all hearing me? Jazakallah khair, Sister Tika, hayakumullah. May Allah reward you and bless you and multiply it for you 1,000-fold, and raise your ranks in Jannah. Ameen. Ameen. Everybody say Ameen. Okay. So at any rate, that brutality now was not just extended, but it was morphed and made into something more palatable for the world to accept. So the women's suffrage movement, or feminism, as we mentioned here on this channel, that was a fight between the white woman and her man. And at the root of feminism was actually the driving force behind feminism, as we mentioned before, was white women demanding full ownership of their slaves. That was the driving force behind it. What do you mean? Because in those days, white women could not own property. As a matter of fact, they were the property of who? White men. And anything that they owned was automatically given to their white husbands. Y'all hearing me? And because slavery was so lucrative, I mean, you got to be a fool to get free land and free labor and not become rich. So this is what was going on. And what was happening, because, of course, there are going to be those who squander wealth, because some of those white men would squander the wealth of these white women. That's the driving force behind feminism. That's why women wanted these rights. You understand? These ownership rights, the rights to property. You get me? That was it. And who was the property? Black folk. Okay? The most liquid property. So, at any rate, the reaction to the women's suffrage movement, actually, the reaction to Black people getting their rights was an increase in activity in feminism. Okay, because these white women did not want to see Black men being able to vote before these white women had the chance to vote. Y'all hearing me? And that was a step up in feminism, and thus the Ku Klux Klan was born. From the feminist movement, you get something called Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, again, was a reaction to the Black population. You got to remember that after slavery had ended, there were approximately 5 Black people to every 1 white person in the South. And the numbers in the North were a little bit even. So, what did these white people do in order to cull the population? Planned Parenthood, eugenics. The eugenics movement, actually, they're co-movements in reality. They are actually co-movements to cull the population of the undesirables, as they would say. And we talked about this. We talked about Margaret Sanger, and we brought her direct statements about we have to pull the weeds or pluck the weeds, talking about Black folk. So now you move to the 60s, and then we have a different type of feminism. This type of feminism was called Black feminism. Black feminism is much different than feminism, okay? Feminism is rooted in white women wanting rights to property, to wealth, to have their own rights and not be the property of men. Y'all get me? And up until this day, it's still very much, regular feminism is very much rooted in that. Where you find these feminists talking about equal pay, and WNBA players want to be paid like NBA players and things of this nature. And these women soccer players want to be paid the same as their male counterparts for winning all these championships and stuff. It's rooted in that. Black feminism, in Black feminism, the whole idea behind Black feminism is we don't need no man. We don't need no men in the house. We can do it on our own. Sisters are doing their own thing. All the single ladies, I don't cook, I don't clean, but let me tell you, I got this ring. That's Black feminism. Much different. Black feminism tries to drive a wedge between the Black man and the Black woman. And so we see from the 60s onwards a steady rise in single motherhood. And we talked about this on this channel as well. Upwards of 70% of children are born into unwed parent households or single mothers, by single mothers. So I came across this article on social media, and I will share it with you. Just let me find it here. I came across this article. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon. This one right here. Now, it was shared by an Instagram channel called Black Success Live. So I saw it, and immediately I said, "This is a funny looking article, right? This is real funny looking. Y'all hearing me? Even it don't look right. Number of children growing up with two parents rises to 70% for the first time in 30 years. And Black people have this disease where we are quick for symbolic victories or anything that will make us look good. And because of that quickness, we're very easy to manipulate. So when I saw this, I was like, well, let me investigate. Let me turn into Sure Black Holmes, right? So anyways, if you read it, it says the portion of U.S. children who live with both parents exceeded 70% in 2020, reversing a nearly 30-year-long trend. Data shows 70.4% of children under 18 live in two-parent households, and 63% of minors reside with both birth parents, according to the current population survey by the U.S. Census Bureau Institute Family Studies reported. Okay, so even right here, right, you can see it's quite vague, and you can see that there's some, it's just off, right? The whole thing is just off, right? And it's a very short article. I've left the link in the description. It's not very long at all. You can read the entire thing if you like. So, but it doesn't really tell you much. And this part right here is just show you something's fishy, right? 70.4% of children under the age of 18 live in two-parent households, and 63% of minors reside with both birth parents. So because they said with both birth parents, when you see an article like this, okay, you first look at two parents raising children, okay? Instinctively, you might think a traditional nuclear family, correct? That's the first thing that's popping in your head. Well, let's see how two parents is defined, shall we? Mind you, when articles like this come out, there's always going to be something more detailed, okay? Let's see, family, how two parents is defined, shall we? Let's have a look. So this is the article that they are actually quoting from the IF studies, okay? Or they mentioned it in the previous article, right? The ISF, okay? The Institute for Family Studies. Now, if you look, what are they defining as two parents? And look what they lead with, okay? All experts agreed the nuclear family was on its way out. What's a nuclear family? Biological mother, biological father, biological children. This is on its way out. The two-parent family of married mother and father bringing up their own biological children would soon be replaced by a menagerie of alternate family forms. Are y'all getting this? Are y'all getting this? So what are these alternate family forms that are replacing the nuclear family? Let's read, shall we? Blended families. Okay, blended families, we can see that. Okay. But what else? Same-sex couples raising, listen, children conceived and born in a variety of unconventional ways. Y'all are tripping. And so on. That's how they're now defining two-parent households. But this right here, this definition is not for the reader. This is actually a prediction of things to come. Because if they were comparing a two-parent model to the 60s, what was a two-parent model in the 60s? What was it? Put it in the chat, please. Somebody put it in the chat. What was the two-parent model in the 60s? What was it? But now they're saying two parents can be anybody. For more than a half century, each year's tabulation from the Census Bureau on children's living arrangements seemed to be proving the experts right. What did the experts write about? The nuclear family is on its way out. As may be seen in Figure 1, the Census Bureau's reading on the proportion of children under 18 living with two parents declined from 88% in 1960. What were the two parents in 1960? Please put it in the chat. To over 2/3 in 2005. And the proportion living with divorced, separated, or never married single parents tripled from 9% to 28%, while the fraction of living neither parent, that is with grandparents or other relatives and foster parents, inched up from 3% to 4.5%. Are y'all hearing this? But a funny thing happened on the way to extinction. Although certainly not out of intensive care, the supposed corpse of the two-parent family seems to be breathing new life. The proportion of children living with two parents has gradually recovered, reaching 70% in 2020, and a fraction of one-parent families has slipped from 28% to 25%, and the number living with neither parent has leveled off to 4.5%. So wait a second. How did that happen? How did that happen? Y'all are tripping. You want to see how that happened? Okay, let's have a look, shall we? Before we celebrate the turning of the tide, however, please note that the Standard Census Bureau Family Trend charts underestimate how grave the condition of two-parent family has been and still is. The Bureau lumps step-parent. Listen, wallahi, okay? I saw this. Actually, I'll read it for you, okay? I saw this. The first place I saw it was Facebook, right? And I didn't investigate it, right? But I just had my suspicions, okay? I had my suspicions because the first place I saw it was on Facebook. A brother shared it. MashaAllah, very good sheikh. And I asked the question. I'm going to read directly from my Facebook, right? Did they give a definition of two parents here? Do you know by any chance, right? So the sheikh said, basically he said no, right? And then I said, okay, and this is quoting, I'm quoting before I even looked for these articles, okay? I'm quoting what I said, okay? I said, I ask because they are saying children are being raised by two parents. And I put it in quotes. Two parents in our time doesn't necessitate marriage. That's what I said. Plus, that number 70% seems inflated. So, if I were to guess, and I was just guessing at that time, I were to guess they're including everyone, like shared custody, gay couples, boyfriend and girlfriend couples, step parents, grandparents. Did they not mention every single thing I guessed in that article? Did they not mention every single thing I guessed in that article? MK Frazier, typical husband and wife household in the 60s. Thank you, Hayakumullah. That's who it was in the 60s. In the 60s, it was a typical husband-wife nuclear family. In this article, it is gay couples, okay? It is, what did they say here? Let me just find it again. Adoptive families, step parents, both birth parents, making up two-parent category, or more inclusive and commonly understood. It's everything I said it was about. They're including all that stuff. So why is this important? We're gonna finish off this paragraph. Furthermore, children in step families and adoptive families have experienced family disruption. You no kidding. The evidence is that they have higher rates of emotional behavior and learning problems than those residing with both birth parents. You don't say. You don't say. Really? I'm shocked. I am stunned that actual evidence shows that children raised with step parents or adoptive children have higher rates of emotional, behavioral, and learning problems than those with both parents. Shocking. So now, this is so crazy, man. So now we see how statisticians, you see, this is the thing, right? Now there will be a push for pronoun parenting and families. You understand what I'm saying? This is how social engineering works, through subversion. So since the enemy controls your children for 8 hours a day in their schools, they control their thoughts. And as an older generation with more conservative values dies off, the grandparents of these children and the great-grandparents of these children, and then eventually the parents of the children, a new one in which they have raised, and in their mind control machines, which they call schools, arises with new enlightened ideas, like with the definition of a two-parent household. What's a two-parent household? Anything with two adults. You get it? If it has two adults in it, that's a two-parent household. And what you got to understand is the human brain is powerful. What do you mean? Anything that the human brain can imagine, it can typically imagine a thing as if it's reality. So if a boy today says he's a girl, and he believes that, he really believes he's a girl. And if any old willy-nilly two adults raising children come together is considered a traditional two-parent family, it's a traditional two-parent family. So what's a traditional two-parent family look like for Black folk today in 2022? You want to see? Do y'all want to see? Y'all ain't ready. That's Dwayne Wade. That's Gabrielle Union. Who's this little funny looking? You see how tall this child is? Boy or girl? Put it in the chat. Is this a boy or a girl? Put it in the chat, please. This right here, according to these stats, is a two-parent household. This child is not her child, but she is basically, this is Dwayne Wade, okay? Dwayne Wade is one of the top basketball players. This is Dwayne Wade's husband here, Gabrielle Union. I know it looks like a dress, but it's actually pants, okay? And he's the one with the pink panties on. That's the one who's wearing the pants in the house. Y'all hearing me? That's the child that Dwayne Wade had when he was running about outside of their relationship. And this husband here is telling this child, who is boyish looking, that this boyish looking child is a girl. That's really what this is all about. Y'all hearing me? To turn the black family into this. Jazakallah khair, hayakumullah, brother Kev D. Hayakumullah, may Allah reward you and bless you and multiply it for you 1,000-fold and raise your ranks and Jannah by Ameen. Ameen. Yeah, it clearly looks like a boy. It clearly looks like a boy, but you go on any social media handle that this typical black family has, and it's a girl. Now, I want you to imagine in about 5 or 10 years, let's say, for example, Dwayne Wade trains this little Negro to play basketball, and he ends up in the WNBA with Dwayne Wade's genes, with Dwayne Wade's genetics. What do you think will happen to the WNBA? Because as far as they're concerned, that is a girl. Even got a baby zaddy to make it real. Exactly. You saw that? You saw that, right? Listen, they training him hard they're training him young to get zaddy. Look at this, y'all. He got himself a zaddy, a baby zaddy. Look at this. Training him young. Welcome to the new black family. Look at this. Welcome to the new black family. Look, he got zaddy. This is so insane, man. This is so insane. Look at this. Yeah, when he gets drafted, 273 points each game. #1 draft pick all around. Yes. Dwayne Wade's daughter, Zaya Wade. He's already tall. I mean, whatever. He's already tall. Y'all hearing me? This is so crazy. So anyways, that's how powerful the human brain is. If your brain tells you that you're a girl and you're a boy, guess what? You're a girl. You know, the enemy figured this out a long time ago. They figured out that through violence and through abuse and torture, you can turn a seemingly human being and lower him or her to that of a beast, where they're enslaved for the duration of their lives. You get me? So if you are mentally a slave, guess what? You're going to be a slave. And no amount of you telling people that you're not a slave will remove the shackles from your mind. You would have to do those actions that are required to break those shackles of mental slavery. And saying it is just not enough. Now, what they've done is that they have incrementally destroyed the nuclear family, correct? Now they have redefined what a two-parent household is in an attempt to normalize debauchery. And with this redefining, it will further solidify in the psyche of Black women that they don't need no man. What do you mean, Bilal? If a family is defined as two parents, just any two individuals in the life of the child, as this article is suggesting, what is the incentive of a Black woman to keep a man? Furthermore, now you have a problem with marriage in general, because men in our time are opting out of marriages because of the legal system and how it has now crept into the pockets of men by penalizing them after breakups. This is a phenomenon that didn't happen before. And Black women now, they have a history of embellishing in order to keep, or rather to seek to punish men in courts. And we talked about this several times on this channel. And they weaponize the legal system against Black men, and using that very same legal system to prevent these men from their children and their money. So for Black women, this is a good business model, because now here come the statisticians calling these same homes two-parent households. They're calling these homes two-parent households. So as the incentives now for Black folk are getting less and less, the pressure of breaking up, of separating these families is getting more and more. And now we're in a situation where eventually, as this article is suggesting, that the nuclear family is dead, and we are redefining what a family is by, what did they say? They said step-parent households. They said adoptive households. They said, whatchamacallit, LGBTQ, with all these different ways to get children and stuff. That's going to be the new family. So unless we get our stuff together, because we see much in terms of attacks on the Black family, in terms of separating the Black family. We really have to work on those traditional conservative values that keep families together. Because I can't remember who said it, but they said children are wealth. The way that we see children, we see them as liabilities. But the truth is, children are actually actual wealth, right? And in order to reap the benefits of that wealth, you have to keep your families together. And it requires both cooperation from both members, the Black man and the Black woman of those families. And if you become Muslim and you're using these kafir courts in order to punish other Muslims, then the effect is not just on you. This has a trickle-down effect. You're affecting the entire society when you do that. You're affecting the entire community when you do that. Because other men are looking at that and they're seeing this marriage thing is a raw deal. And it doesn't make a difference if they're Muslim or not, because that's what they're going to see. So the brothers, you have to choose better. And not only that, you have to do better as well. You have to do better. And you have to do the things that will raise your value so that you're not picking from the bottom of the barrel. And for the sisters, my best advice to you is the advice of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? Where the Prophet Muhammad, he said, he looked into the Jannah and he saw that was filled with mostly poor people. And he looked into the Nar, or the fire, and he saw it was filled with mostly women. And he was asked, is it because they'll be doing acts of disbelief and kufr? And he said, no, but rather it's because when their husband does something and they don't like it, they always say, you have never done anything good for me. And they're unappreciative to your husbands. This is the advice that Black women need today. They need the advice of the Prophet Muhammad. They don't need anything else. They need the advice or the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail and the two wives. One of them, when Ibrahim visited and the wife didn't know who he was, he asked about the situation of Ismail. And herself, she said, oh, we're living in squalor and we don't have food and blah, blah, blah. And then he advised and he told his Ismail's wife, tell your husband when he comes back, change the threshold of your gate. And then the other wife, she was saying, oh, we have this, we have that. She was basically bigging up her husband, even though they didn't have. They did not have, but she was defending the honor of her husband. And then Ibrahim said, keep the threshold of your gate. The first wife meant to divorce her, despite the fact that she was telling the truth. The second wife, keep her. Why? Because of that defense that she had of her husband. The defense. This is what Black women need to hear today. Nothing else. They don't need to hear anything else. There is an attack on the Black family. And as I mentioned before, Black people in general, they love their ears to be rinsed. They love to hear the things that are so symbolic and make them look good, but particularly Black women. They love to hear the things that make them, And this is the nature of women anyways. But the best advice you can get today is the truth, because we are not fixing these problems, without having some critical analysis of what we should be doing. Okay, so the sister Khadija Daniels, she said, that's a weak hadith in which we should not follow as being solid proof. It was said by one person. We must be careful. Which I'm not sure which hadith they're saying is weak. But I don't know either one of them to be weak. But if you have some evidence, it's no problem, inshallah. It's no problem if you have the evidence to show it's weak. But I'm not sure which hadith you're saying is weak anyways. All right, but we just said the one. No, that's not weak. That is not weak. Where did you get that one? That was weak. It's not weak. It's actually sahih. Right? So anyway, we can bring it next time. Inshallah. We can bring it. Okay? All right? But anyways, Jazakumullah khair, hayakumullah. I know some of y'all, I mean, most of us anyway, we got to go and cook for iftar. So that's what I have for you. I want to thank everybody who participated. Hayakumullah, all the brothers and sisters who participated. Jazakumullah khair for Sister Tika, Brother Kevdi, and Sister Tika for your generosity. May Allah reward you and bless you and multiply for you 1,000-fold on Yom Al-Qiyamah, inshallah. Right? Sister Khadija Daniel, if you want to text me in Facebook, inshallah, then we can look at that hadith. Okay? Inshallah. No problem. No. Min ayuni. Okay? Ayakumullah. Right? Subhanaka la yuhambik wa shada la ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.